Hey guys, what's up? It is week 449. Is that the number we're at? Let's just jump right into the reviews. And the first one up is kind of a doozy set here. We're going to do the whole set, but we'll start, of course, with the first film. This is released from Arrow Video. This is the 4K set. And this is, according to one of the commentaries, the oddest franchise of all time. Or one that obviously shouldn't have happened, according to them, or just surprisingly happened. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the trilogy here. Yep. Arrow Video put this out, like I mentioned. So, these have had Blu-rays, and I don't think they've had a stateside 4K yet. Not that I could think of, or maybe even a 4K. But, yeah, I've seen the sets floating around, and I'm glad I held off, because now we finally have these in 4K. Now, let me just kind of briefly talk about my history with Ninja Turtles. So, I grew up watching the cartoon and collecting the action figures, and I saw the movie, had a poster in my room, all that kind of stuff like that. But it's not something that stayed with me as I grew into an adult. So it had been a long time since I seen the Ninja Turtles films. So rewatching the first one was kind of a pleasant surprise here. From the same director of Coneheads, a British director here. I can't think of his name, but Coneheads is one that I actually have a lot of fondness for. But yeah, this is odd. This kind of got an odd start. It was an independent comic in the 84 by a couple guys, in the United States here, which, for the history, if you would have asked me, I always would have guessed that Ninja Turtles was a Japanese comic. I don't know why, a manga or something like that. But no, made here in the States. Golden Harvest, which is a Hong Kong company, ended up kind of getting the rights to it, and they were shopping it around. They couldn't get anybody to bite. And then New Line bit, which is kind of on brand with New Line, taking a lot of chances. They had, the house that Freddy built. But, later they would all try a lot of different kind of comic book or, I guess pre-established franchises with their luck at it, like Lost in Space or Spawn. So New Line was always one of those companies that was willing to kind of take a chance. So taking a chance with the Ninja Turtles ended up paying off. So you got American crew, because this is filmed in New York City and North Carolina for a lot of it. Some of the exteriors and setups were filmed in New York, and then most of it was filmed in North Carolina. So you got Americans, Britain people, and you got people from Hong Kong, Golden Harvest involved. So this makes for an odd kind of film. The people from Golden Harvest didn't really seem to understand what the Turtles kind of were, nor did kind of New Line. So it's just an odd kind of mixture of things here. So what you get is the darkest of the films, and kind of a darker superhero film of the time, 1990. And if you think of the New York horror movies of the 80s, like William Lustig's or Abel Ferrara's movies, you got that gritty, nasty New York. Now Turtles isn't quite as gritty as that, but it does have a little bit. And especially, it's kind of impressive that a lot of this was filmed in North Carolina. So the story goes, of course, that these four turtles were exposed to some sort of mutagen, and they grew bigger. Splinter is their master. He's a rat who is exposed to somewhat of the same mutagen. He has a little bit richer history with kind of a master where he learned his martial arts. And these kind of, 5 mutagens kind of reside in the New York sewer system. And they are of age. They're teenagers now, of course, hence the title. So they go out and they kind of fight crime. At the same time, there is a mysterious element kind of taking over the city where they're using the youth to kind of rob and steal and carry out their crimes. And they're kind of considered foot soldiers. And they're ran by somebody that would be, from Splinter's past in the Shredder. So that's kind of the plot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They get tied in with reporter April O'Neil, and the actual actress in this is different from the sequels. And I actually prefer, I think, this one. But it fits more with this tone. It's more of a grounded tone, a more grounded, realistic kind of tone. Also should mention The Mask is kind of an oddball New Line cinema movie. I believe they released that one as well. So they kind of always were willing to take a chance. And in the more New Line stuff I revisit, it's just so many oddball titles from my childhood. This one works really well. Now, the Turtles are actually done by the Jim Henson kind of place, which is insane that they got involved with this one. They did a really good job with the animatronic heads, and they go over all the details of how the Turtles work. So you basically have the voice actors, one of which is Corey Feldman playing Donatello. Big get for them on that one. You have the stuntmen in the turtle suits, and then you have actually kind of the performers as well, and there's the animatronics. So you got all sorts of crazy shit going on. It's ADR'd. You got all these studios battling, and it's kind of impressive that the movie turned out so well. You have some young roles from Sam Rockwell was one of the bad kids and all that kind of stuff like this. It's just got a nice little kind of tone to it, where it's goofy and silly with the pizza and the hijinks of the turtles, but then you got this kind of dark little, somewhat real kind of, it seems like it has stakes in it. I also have to mention Elias Koteas in here, plays Casey Jones. I think he kind of steals a lot of the movie. I think he's tremendous in here, a longtime Turtle character, kind of a hot-headed kind of guy, kind of matched up with Raph's kind of temper. So you have the four Turtles, right? Raphael is the one with the temper, Donatello's supposed to be the smart kind of one with electronics, Leonardo's the leader. That's always they always say Leonardo is the leader. And you're like, that's kind of a generic. And Michelangelo is the party dude. He's the funny guy. So I think the characters, they do pretty well with them. I think Raph and Michelangelo are the ones that stand out in this film. I think Donatello doesn't necessarily get the kind of brainiac stuff until later in the series. I think he's more kind of just the second fiddle to Michelangelo, kind of being semi-silly, not fitting in exactly, But I do think that Michelangelo and Raphael definitely have the biggest kind of characters in here as far as the Turtles are concerned. I think the animatronic work on Splinter is really well done. I think that they cover him with a lot of moisture and stuff to make it look real. He's a puppet. He's not actually an actor in here. And in fact, I actually thought that they did a really good job making this on a budget. The fight stuff is pretty decent. Golden Harvest is no slouch on that kind of stuff. And these are guys in suits. So I think the stuntmen did a pretty good job. The fight choreographing is pretty solid. Shredder's actually a great villain. I always thought Shredder was a great villain. And I think his, presence and charisma and screen presence, it works really well. Overall, I think this is probably one of the better, aimed at kids kind of superhero movies, and I think Ninja Turtles holds up. The first one definitely holds up, and I always felt that way. I never ever thought Ninja Turtles Part 1 was a bad film. But as far as the special features are concerned, we have two commentaries here. We have one with the director, Steve Barron, and then we have a brand new commentary. He talks a little bit about the making of and getting it together and all that kind of stuff like that, working with these different components. Brand new commentary with comic book expert podcast host David Baxter. Now, this guy is a comic book expert, like it mentions. He talks about what's from the comics in the movies, what has changed, where these elements came from, talks a lot about the different two creators of Ninja Turtles and how they work together and which one was strong points and weak points, all that kind of stuff like that. Actually, a really excellent commentary, especially for a novice when it comes to the Turtle comics. I had a couple here and there, but they were latter-day comics with like weird characters like Wingnut and stuff like that. And I had a lot of the figures in the cartoons, so I was into it, but I wasn't into the original source material stuff, so this commentary helped quite a bit. And then we also have the commentary with Barron, where is it Rising When We Fall, newly filmed interview with director Steve Barron. It seems really complicated to make this movie. He mentions a lot of different stuff working with these different elements like Golden Harvest and New Line, and seems like an interesting guy. Turtle Talk, newly filmed interview with actors Robbie Riss, Brian Tochi, Ernie Reyes Jr., and Ken Scott. Some of these are actually, I think, the performers in the suit. Reyes would actually have a role in part 2 as Kino, kind of filling in as, I guess, the Casey Jones character to a certain extent. Then we have O'Neill on the Beat, a newly filmed interview with actor Judith Hogue, and she's really good, and it's kind of sad seeing her not kind of be included in the second film, but she doesn't seem to be very, full of spite or anything of that nature. But she's really solid in this, and her interview is good. What Behind the Shell's newly filmed interview with producer Simon Fields. Beneath the Shell, newly filmed interview with puppet coordinator and second unit director Brian Henson. That's also interesting. And Rod Tiger, puppeteer for both Splinter and Leonardo. And they talk about, their strong points and what they were into. Of course, one being Jim Henson's son, so he has good stories. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turf, a newly filmed featurette exploring the film's locations in New York City and North Carolina. That is with Michael Gingold, who always does these good stuff. Alternate UK version with unique footage prepared for censorship reasons. The nunchucks, everybody knows that. They do not like that in the UK back in the day. I guarantee some politician's kid hit himself in the nuts or something. I don't know. And then we have, that's also presented in 4K via seamless branching. Love when Arrow does that. Alternate ending from VHS work print. Alternate Korean footage, theatrical trailers, image gallery, reversible sleeve featuring original and newly commissioned artwork by Flory. So, hey dude, this is no cartoon. So, great release. I don't love this cover art, to be honest. I don't hate it. It's, but it has the original cover art of the first film on there, the very classic poster, the one-sheet poster I used to have, so I can love that. We have Dolby Atmos sound, so good a sound. Looks great. Looks fantastic, actually, shockingly, because it still manages to carry that kind of dark atmosphere that the first film does, and it's appreciated. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1990, from Arrow Video. Good stuff. Okay, we're moving on to the second Turtles film here, too. The only one with a little name at the end here. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. The Secret of the Ooze. That's right. So they kind of, I think, changed the mythology here from the comic book. I think that maybe involve something like Crane with the Ooze. I can't exactly remember this stuff. They go in detail a little bit about it. But yeah, so 1 year later, we bring the Turtles back. It's kind of rushed. Corey Feldman's no longer here doing a voice. Laz Kotesh is no longer back as Casey Jones. But Shredder is back, of course. And we have kind of a couple new villains. So whatever reasons, copyright, whatever not, that Rocksteady and Bebop are not in here. Instead, we have Tokar and Razor. So they actually kiddied this up. They were a little bit worried about some of the kind of dark elements of the first film, the family kind of elements and being together. Didn't, I guess, like convince them enough that it would be fine. So they kind of lightened this up. Visually, it looks, much brighter. You can see the suits a little bit more. The Henson people, I believe, are still back on this one. But there is some, it's very kiddie and silly, and the jokes are much more childish and goofy. But it's kind of accepted. This one was one of the most popular ones when I was a kid. People really liked Part 2 growing up when I was alive back in the 90s. But I liked it, but I always, like, when I came to my teens, I never really cared much for the second one. I was just like, it's kind of just like, it's a little too childish kiddie. I was over here watching Hellraiser by that time. But revisiting it, I did not hate the film at all. I was decent with it. And the commentary on here is pretty good. You have like an expert on here, moderator, and the director. And in the beginning, they kind of fight for like their airtime and stuff like that. But it's not like an aggressive fight. They just both have a lot of knowledge and information. They're bouncing off each other and want to talk about stuff. It's a good commentary, very filled with information and whatnot. And so basically, the plot here is as follows. The Turtles are still being teenagers. April O'Neil's still in the picture, recast here, and there is this kind of corporation that is getting in trouble around town and stuff because they're kind of leaking things, and it's this mutation that's causing these kind of sunflower seeds to get bigger around the area. But the stuff, of course, is what changed the Turtles. So they're completely interested. The Turtles get invested in it, but so does one of Shredder's Foot Clan, sees it and brings it to Shredder, and Shredder thinks, how can I stop the Turtles? Maybe I can infect some other animals to face the Turtles. So they get the biggest, baddest animals they can get, and they give them the Ooze, and Tokar and Razor, a snapping turtle, and a wolf come out, and they're large and crazy, and they look awesome. Very much Razor looks like he's from the Labyrinth or something of that nature, but they are children, so ensue the comedy jokes and all that. The doctor behind the whole thing is David Warner, legendary, great actor from the Sam Peckinpah movies like Ballad of Cable Hogue, Straw Dogs, Cross of Iron, but he's also in amazing horror films in the 80s like Waxwork, and he's even in great stuff like Time Bandits, where he plays a villain. But he's just one of my overall favorite actors, and he does a really good job in here because he plays it straight and he gives them what they need instead of phoning it in this cheesy performance. He's not really a bad guy, but he's this kind of character that's like responsible for the Ooze and whatnot. Yeah, this one's fun enough, but I don't think it's nearly as strong as the first film. I think, like I said, it's brighter and sillier and definitely more 90s. That first one still had that carryover from the 80s. I don't really have that much to say about The Secret of Ooze. I know it's probably a little disappointing for a lot of people looking for, Secret of Ooze, what is he gonna, I don't want to trash the movie because I don't find it bad, but I don't find it as interesting as the first film or as good as the first film. Like I said, Tokar and Razor look fantastic. I wish it was Rocksteady and Bebop, but I definitely had these figures growing up, the Tokar and Razor figures, and I love them. But this movie is fun. It's silly. It's goofier. If you like the first one, it still has a lot of the martial arts kind of stuff going on here. Still has all the same pizza gags. And it bleeds a little bit together, but I don't think Splinter looks quite as good. I think they keep too much light on him. They probably didn't want him to look as realistic as he did in the first film. But as far as the features are on Secret of the Ooze, we have new commentary director Michael Pressman, moderated by a filmmaker Jillian Wallace Horvat. John Dupree's to the rescue, newly filmed interview with the composer of the trilogy, John Dupree's. Hardcore's newly filmed interview with Kerry Winson. Mold Shop supervisor at Jim Henson. Creature Shop, The Secret of the Edit, the newly filmed interview with editor Steve Mirogovich. Behind the Shells, an archival featurette from 1991. And then Inversible Sleeve, featuring commissioned artwork by Flory. So, yeah. Oh, I should mention when I show the thing, there's all these little cool cards within all these sets here, like hologram cards, which definitely fits with the Turtles kind of deal here. You get Splinter and Shredder, but I'll show them closer, better detail in the video. But I think people remember this one very fondly. But I do take it down a notch compared to the first because we don't have Casey Jones, we don't have the original April O'Neil, we don't have the dark kind of look to it, and we had the chance to create these monsters, and the monsters they have are fun, but it's not who we wanted. Kind of like Master Universe. I love the Master Universe movie, but it doesn't have the characters that you're used to. I mean, it does have Beastman and Evil Lynn, but where's Trapjaw and stuff like that of that nature. But yeah, so the second one, Secret of the Ooze, looks great too. And this one probably might pop out a little bit more for people because it's a brighter film. So there's an amazing amount of detail in the background and stuff, which I thought was insane. I just like, especially the scene where they go in the very beginning when they're showing kind of like the swamp area where like the waste has infected things, and you're seeing like little things all the way in the background and stuff. So a lot of detail. Okay, we have the final Turtles film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 3. And this one is, I think probably lives in infamy the most. It's infamous Turtles movie here because a lot of people absolutely hated this movie when it came out. And I wasn't a huge fan either. Maybe it was a little too late for me by the time it came out. But also, it just, it wasn't really a Turtles movie. It didn't feel exactly like a Turtles movie. The Turtles kind of traveling through time is fun. The fish out of water aspects is always kind of cool. Throwing them in, period piece Japan where they have to deal with, like, the influxion of guns and the British coming kind of in, like the colonial kind of people coming in and bringing in these different kind of weapons and stuff. I thought was really cool. Stuart Wilson is in this movie, and I know him mostly from the Ray Liotta kind of totalitarian kind of prison movie No Escape, which I love. He plays the main bad guy in this, and he plays the main bad guy in No Escape too. He's good in both films. He's solid in this one. But what happens is there's this kind of cipher thing or whatever the hell it is, and April O'Neil gets it, brings it back to the kind of the place where the turtles are hanging out, where they found their like little trolley car under the sewer in the second one. And what happens is it transports the turtles and April back in time into this Japanese kind of this place where there's lords, and there's this kind of Romeo and Juliet style story going on between these two people that the shogun or the father doesn't want to happen. So it causes this kind of war. And when they disappear, the son, he thinks that something's gone, and is this building tension and everything. And you have real evil people in the back kind of pulling the strings and everything. It's very much in that kind of vein of those period piece Japanese movies, but you incorporate Ninja Turtles and some jokes and some silliness. There's some good moments for a lot of the characters, like Ralph and Michelangelo and wanting to stay and all that kind of stuff like that. I think works fairly well. I think there's some silly fun to be had with Master Splinter and Casey Jones back in the lair with the Japanese transports that got sent to New York City, and they're having their stupid antics and all that kind of stuff like that. The action's fairly well done. It doesn't look like a cheap movie. It's not a horrible movie. It's just kind of an oddball in this series, that the idea, but they kind of wanted to do something new, and I don't hate it. And revisiting this, I remember revisiting this like as an 18, 19-year-old. I didn't hate it either. I thought it was a lot better than people say, although I don't think it's an amazing film or anything of that nature. And I should mention Ice Ice Baby from Secret of the Ooze. How could I not? And that wasn't as cringy this time around as it was the last time I watched it. But overall, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 3 I think is a solid movie. I don't think it's an amazing movie. I think that Elias Koteas getting to play dual roles is fun. I like the kind of the whole kind of colonialism and the guns and stuff. Reminds me of a lot of the kind of Japanese other kind of films I would watch, where that was a kind of big issue where they got to stop them from bringing in the trading because Japan was so isolated for so many years, and eventually people did come in and trade and bring in the guns and change the whole landscape of it. I think it's kind of crazy that the Ninja Turtles movie is actually incorporating some real historical context to their film, which can be cool for some and maybe not for others. But as far as the features are concerned, we do have brand new commentary director Stuart Gillard, Damios and Demons. They call them Kappas, the demon turtle thing. A newly filmed interview with actor Sab Shimono, and he plays kind of the father shogun character actor, been in a bunch of stuff. Good interview. Rebel, newly filmed interview with actor Vivian Wu. Alternate UK opening theatrical trailer. Everybody seems like they had a good time on this. They have absolutely no bad things to say about anybody, and it shows. It's a decent, solid movie. I prefer the first. I think the first is really strong and good, and probably can't be much better for what it is. I think the second one's good for kids, and I think the third one's not bad. They all look great, though. I will mention that. And Arrow did a really good job with this, and a lot of little added things in here, like Casey Jones. Love Casey Jones, probably my favorite. You got 2 April O'Neil cards, so the different Aprils on there, but nice little touches. Something the Ninja Turtles I think deserved, but these are cool. These are good stuff, so check it out. All right, this next movie is from 88 Films, and it is Rosa, and it stars one of the kind of classic Hong Kong actors here, Yuen Biao. I always probably say his name wrong. He's always had an association with Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan. They're in a bunch of movies together. He's great at martial arts, just a really good actor. I've probably seen like 10, 15 of his movies, maybe more. Always enjoy it. This one is a lot of fun. Now, Rosa was one I had not heard about, but this is loosely related to the Pom Pom movies, which I'm also not familiar with. Listen to the commentary by Frank Jin, and these seem to be a buddy kind of comedy, kind of team duo thing with different actors in them. There's like 4 of those, and this was advertised at places as a sequel, but it is really not. This follows kind of 2 bumbling cops. I don't know if I'd call them bumbling, maybe just they're good at what they do, but one has a hot head and one kind of just they both kind of just make mistakes. But in the very beginning of this one, it's a really kind of convoluted, weird story where it's getting all the characters introduced and whatnot. And Yuen Biao is basically supposed to unarm this criminal, and his commanding officer is supposed to go in there and arrest him without incident and give him a big promotion and all whatnot. But Yuen Biao basically screws it up and makes the commanding officer look like an idiot. That guy's demoted, and at the same time, Yuen Biao later is trying to catch some criminals that popped his basketball because he's playing basketball, and he ends up hijacking this girl's motorcycle with her on it, causes an accident where she gets hurt, and he ends up having to take her to the hospital. He feels really bad, and at the same time, the girl's brother is called and told that, and he's on the way, and he causes this accident where that commanding officer's car and causes his wife to give birth early. So these 2 cops are both on that guy's shit list, and it starts this weird kind of romance between Yuen Biao and the mustache cop character's sister. So it gets really weird and wild. The actual sister is played by the woman in Demon of the Loot, which is a fantastic fantasy movie. Great actress, can't think of her name. But their job is to kind of find this girl who owes a lot of money. She's a beautiful kind of girl, and she hangs around kind of like some deviant kind of character, some criminal element, and she knows this guy who's ripped off the police, and he's ripped off these criminals, and there's a bunch of baddies after him, and she's to date him. So they're supposed to find out if she knows anything about it. Of course, the mustachio cop, they call him Mustache in the film, has a thing for her, and they start to double date as a sister, and all this kind of weird relationship like that. Comedy ensues. But this movie is one of these movies where you have your standard buddy cop movie, like, I don't want to, maybe Beverly Hills Cop or Running Scared, but it's a little goofier than that, where we establish like characters, like there's this whole big element where they're trying to trick these criminals so they can pay off this one person's debt, and they're in this room, and everybody's over the top stereotype, where we have like this flamboyantly gay guy and this guy who's been to like America, and he's trying to be like, you know, your standard New York kind of pimp kind of guy. So you have all these weird kind of characters like that, and it goes so far that these guys, even one of them, mustache dresses up in blackface, which is clearly dated, stuff like that. But what ensues is this awesome fun fight scene, and a lot of hijinks ensue. So it'll have these like goofy jokes and moments like that, but then they'll have these like high octane action and stuff, and people do die. There is some brutality in here. That's what I kind of like about the Hong Kong movies, is like in certain aspects, it's when it's funny, but when it's serious, and it takes a while to get adjusted to that. But I don't think this is so much different than a lot of the other buddy cop movies, where, you know, they'll make a joke or something, and then somebody will get shot and killed. So I think that kind of genre has always been that kind of way, you know, that serious violence, but also that lighthearted comedy bit. But there's also martial arts in here, and I think it works really well. But of course, you know, there's going to be relationship stuff going on that's funny and outdated, of course. But I thought that Rosa was absolutely really fun and charming, and I like all 4 of the main characters. I think the bad guys are fun. I think they're scary when they need to be, and I think that it has the right amount of violence, but not too much to where it would turn off, you know, that it's not going to come in like the Untold Story or something of that aspect, or run and kill or something. You know, it's a little bit more tame in that aspect, and it's not even as extreme or as well done as something like, you know, a John Woo movie from that time. But it's still a very, very entertaining, good buddy cop movie, with good, you know, martial arts stunts, and a good plot, and a good story, and comical characters and whatnot, and lighthearted enough to be overly enjoyable by, I think, almost anyone. But we have collectible postcard, 40-page perfectly bound book featuring new writings on the film by Fraser Elliott and Paul Bramhall. And then we have a commentary by Frank Jin and F.J. DeSanto. We have 2.1 English, and we have Cantonese. We do subtitles, and then we also have... where are we at? Oh, sorry. we have another audio commentary by Hong Kong cinema expert David West. Interview with Joe Chang and Ben Kong. Good commentary on here. I only got a chance to listen to the Frank Jin. I made a mistake on that. I've heard David West's commentaries before, and they're fantastic. Sometimes I don't know there's two commentaries, and I screw up on here, but the Frank Jin one is good and entertaining, and they seem to go over the Pom Pom history and series and whatnot. But good release of a fun movie that I did not know much about. Love the Hong Kong stuff. I will keep picking it up or covering it as long as they're putting them out, and I hope we get more and more and stuff. I know that even Vinegar Syndrome's been picking them up too. We have that set to look forward to, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, should be coming in the mail for me. Okay, this next one here is from Altered Innocence, and I believe this film was originally made in 2023. It's by Amanda Kramer here, narrated by Debbie Harry, and this is kind of a long video essay documentary here called So Unreal, but it's a subject that does interest me a lot, and I think that it's very prevalent nowadays. But I don't know the overall arching kind of thing here. It's not something I can simply explain very easy. It's about, technology in film and technology paranoia and all this kind of stuff like that, and where we're going and what we see from cinema and how it reflects society, and how essentially the stuff we used to watch as science fiction has become a reality now, and you almost scoff at it. But this opens up, and it talks a lot about, the Matrix being in this kind of fake world and everything, and be able to break out of it. And it has these chapters that are all designed. They even go dystopian is one of the last chapters, talking about dystopian kind of future technology films, where we're going to talk about hardware, or show clips from hardware, talk about the Terminator. In the beginning, we talk a lot about the Matrix. We also have these other elements here, too, about people bonding with robots, and have these different films like that, like Weird Science. So it literally is a wide plethora of films, and it starts off kind of broken up in 6 chapters. We talk about the idea that we use these kind of stuff for sex and so it's a very interesting documentary. We have Debbie Harry from Blondie, of course, and Videodrome narrating in her kind of I don't know how to say it, but her very unique kind of, I would say, almost cold and calculated voice, and by the end of it, it's very poignant. And I'm sitting here thinking, and they're talking about AI and all these different things that people used to comparing to Wizard of Oz, how it used to be, this idea of escaping into this fantasy world where you don't have to worry about the real world and stuff like that. Now it's almost like people have done that so much that the real world is disappearing, and it's an interesting kind of idea, and it's done through this video essay. It's very intelligent. It's edited really well with numerous clips, and the music score is actually made for the movie. So it's not just a lot of scores from the movies. It's this beautiful kind of, I don't want to say droning, but very ambient music that fits with it, and kind of a little bit intense stuff if you let yourself be taken by it. And also has different kind of effects and transitions and stuff that aren't so generic to make it just seem like a clip show. It's a little bit different than that. But overall, I thought this was really interesting. I thought it brought up some poignant moments, and I liked it. I really did enjoy it. It does have a commentary with the director, but it also has all the commentary with writer, director Amanda Kramer, writer Britt Brown, editor, producer Benjamin Schern, and executive producer Brian Miller. A conversation between Debbie Harry and Amanda Kramer, filmed live at the 2004 Rotterdam Film Festival. Actually talks with Debbie Harry and asks her a lot of interesting questions and whatnot about her career, and about not just the generic stuff, and what she likes and where we're heading and stuff like that. Pretty good stuff. Feature-length documentary Silk, behind the scenes portrait of 100% Silk, the record label behind the music of the music in So Unreal. So that's good stuff too. Kind of interesting look at a different kind of sub genre or sub niche of music. A booklet featuring an essay on the film by executive producer Brian Miller. Comprehensive So Unreal filmography and soundtrack listing. So yeah, there's tons and tons of stuff used here, and I was tickled pink to see Tetsuo the Iron Man used on here. Expanded filmography. Man, they really go in here. There's just tons of stuff. I don't even know. Just tons of stuff. So they even have it divided in the chapters, which I think is really brilliant. Prelude, Protovisions, Tron, Hack the Planet, Beyond Tron, Hack the Planet Continued, The Intoxication of Immersion, No Turning Back, A Brief Interlude for Cyber Sex. This is great. No, but this is really good. This is interesting stuff, and you don't realize how crazy the technology and sci-fi is a genre that always predicts the future, which is insane to me. And a lot of times you'll be laughing at it, and then it's reality. And the people's attitudes, like in something like A Day the Earth Stood Still, the people's attitudes in that, when he's trying to convince them that they're going to be killed if they don't straighten their act around, the way they treat him and interview him, and it's just so dead on, And I just don't know if the human condition or human nature has changed. But in the interview with Debbie Harry is interesting. She says, I don't remember if it's her that was like, maybe it's the director saying our brains are being rewired. Human beings are only supposed to know X amount of people in their life. Now we know all these people. We know everybody from the internet and stuff. And it's just like our brains are being rewired to think differently. We're no longer the humans we once knew. And I mean, as a race, we evolve, but it's scary, and change can be scary, although sometimes it's needed. I don't know if this AI move or any of this stuff is exactly needed, but hey, it is what it is. So unreal. Interesting documentary video essay. Great stuff from Altered Innocence. Good label, too. Check it out. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about one from Kino here, and this is Ilsa. She-Wolf of the SS, 1975 exploitation, Nazi-sploitation movie here, directed by Don Evans, Canadian film here, starring Diane Thorne, Buck Flower. Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS on fucking 4K, guys. That is insane. I never thought we'd see the Ilsa movies on 4K. Got the first one, had to pop it in, and couldn't wait to watch Ilsa any longer. So Ilsa is a movie I saw a long, long time ago. Never revisited it. I always enjoyed it, always had fond memories of it, so I was like, man, it'd be really fun to rewatch Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. I've seen a handful of the Nazi-sploitation, probably more than most people, and rewatching them, sometimes they're alright. I know 88 Films put out a couple, and both those movies, they're not great. They're not horrible, but they're not great. Ilsa is the one to be. Ilsa is an amazing film. So, they had stuff like The Damned, which is like an art film. Never actually got to see Visconti's The Damned, or the other one that was a big one, Night Porter was the big one also that came out. So these kind of Nazis in these films, not really Nazi exploitations, but they had them in their films. And then we had stuff later like Love Camp 7, which was produced by David Freeman, who actually is a secret producer on Ilsa, which all makes sense. So they came up to Freeman and said, hey, we want something like that with just more torture. And they had a terrible script, and he approached Don Evans to direct it. Don Evans, directed a handful of movies before this, and has been working in, I guess the showbiz for a very, very long time. So he decided to take this movie because he needed a lot of money. He had 9 days to make it, $150,000, and he made kind of an exploitation masterpiece here. Diane Thorne as Ilsa is an incredibly memorable character. Listening to the commentaries was really refreshing because I didn't really know her background. I'd seen some of the stuff she's in and seen her at Wasteland once. Never did get to meet her. I should have, though. But she mentions that she came from like a comedy background and stuff, which is different because she said a lot of people wouldn't play this character. There's this weird sense of like self-awareness to a certain point. So Ilsa is a movie, the Nazi exploitation movie that packs in as much nudity and gratuitous violence as it possibly can. And the funny thing is, so it looks like it's towards the end of the days of World War II. Ilsa's running this small camp with a minimal amount of prisoners, a lot of female prisoners, a handful of male prisoners. Doesn't seem like any of them are Jewish. They don't mention it. She has other female kind of mean, evil kind of guards that definitely have that lesbianism kind of thing going on where they enjoy it. They even show that in graphic detail. Her evil doctor is Buck Flower. She's also a mad scientist herself. This kind of German-American guy or American-German guy comes in, and she starts kind of mess with him immediately, and he has something a little bit more special about him. So what Ilsa does in her spare time for pleasure is she takes the prisoners, and if they can't satisfy her sexually, she castrates them. Many of them die, some of them live, but they have to live as half-men, as Mario says in the movie, one of the characters. But a huge chunk of this movie is basically these giant-breasted women being stripped down and tortured in violent, gory detail. The special effects are really effective for the time and really nasty. And it's very exploitative. It's a lot of torture and stuff, and I don't think a lot of people would dig this. It's definitely not something that they probably would make today that would have they would, but it would be so much even more low budget than this. The one thing I was watching this and I was like, man, this is actually reminds me a lot of stuff like, Men Behind the Sun is kind of a similar plot, right? We have Unit 731, Japanese people torturing Chinese and Russian prisoners during World War II for experiments, kind of like what the Nazis did. But some of the experiments they actually do in here, like the compression chamber and like the freezing compression chamber, I'm like, it's kind of crazy how Men Behind the Sun did this often. I mean, there's only so many experiments they probably could have done or did do. But also the fact that there's this one character that Ilsa's trying to find this female character to break her, to prove that women can take more pain than men. And this reminded me of Martyrs. As weird as it is, Martyrs has this weird kind of feeling to it, like the reasoning behind it that makes it more deep or intelligent. But at the end of the day, She's doing the same fucking thing. She's just torturing this woman until she breaks. And when she comes out, like, almost skinned alive with one less eyeball at the end of the film, she looks a lot like the girl in Martyrs, how she looked at the end or something along those lines. But, yeah, some of the acting is not great. I think Diane Thorne is tremendous as the titular Ilsa. I think she carries her, her character very well. And kind of as an evil kind of monster character. I think that the special effects are really solid for it. I think the Uprising is fun. Filmed on the backlots of Hogan's Heroes, of course. They were to destroy it after they were done. That's why they could use it. But I think this one holds up really well. If you're into Nazi-exploitation movies, this one is a must. If you want to give them a shot, Ilsa is one that I would start with. I think you start with stuff like that. I think Ilsa, or maybe even some of the Italian ones. I think this beats any of the Italian ones that I've seen. I think this is the top-notch one, right, of Nazi-exploitation movies here. But 1976, 77 is big time. It was like all Nazi-exploitation movies. Maybe Ilsa had worked its way around there and stuff like that. But we have some special features, so then the Italians were like, we can make some money off this. There's French ones as well. But audio commentary, actress Diane Thorne, director Don Evans, and producer David Friedman, moderated by humorist Martin Lewis. That's a great commentary, a lot of knowledge about the people involved, and they have a good time. A lot of intelligent people with interesting stories and interesting things to say. We also have an audio commentary by film historian Kat Ellinger and what's it pronounced? Eugenie Malokdik. That's a hard name to say. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. I believe we're Facebook friends. That's also a good commentary. They do relay some of the stuff that they do say on the commentary, but I think that Kat Ellinger rightfully kind of points out, and it was refreshing to hear this. She's like, it's an exploitation movie, Nazi-exploitation movie. People always try to put stuff in a lot of movies that's not there, and to say, because they're embarrassed to enjoy it. I mean, after all, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. And She-Wolf the SS interview with Don Evans by Elijah Drenner. Enjoyed this too because Don Evans says, I didn't think of any of this stuff. It was a gig. It was a job. I tried to do my best I could, but this movie is the movie we made. And it is what it is. I'm a filmmaker. I make films, and I try to do it the best I can. And that's also refreshing to hear. Now, some movies do have a lot of this in-depth stuff, and exploitation movies are no different. Then they have that stuff too. Any movie can have that stuff, or have that stuff on purpose or on accident, right? But sometimes movies are just movies, and I think we get hung up on the idea of trying to find stuff that may or may not be there. But at the end of the day, movies mean things to different people, and that's perfectly fine and reasonable and entertaining to talk about. But sometimes it does seem like hogwash. But hey, it is what it is. Ilsa, She-Wolf the SS, looks fucking fantastic in 4K. The sound, it's only the one kind of sound mix here. A lot of the stuff, elements, whatnot, I'm not sure. But a lot of the old movies never really have the stuff like that. But it didn't sound terrible at all, but it looked really good. And I was happy to see it look this good. And gory, nasty detail. Still shocking. Still fucking shocking watching this. Sometimes you revisit the stuff I've seen a lot since I first saw Ilsa. I was like, I ain't gonna be his name. I was like, oh man, this is pretty hardcore still and enjoyable. And it's funny because I like extreme movies, but I like extreme movies in spite of the extremity. I don't mind extremity in a movie at all. At all. It doesn't bother me unless the movie only has extremity. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have anything else. It doesn't have good acting, good characters, good anything. If that's all it has to offer is extremity, then I check out pretty fucking quick. Because what's the fucking point? As far as the soundtrack, they use library music, and you can hear some of the same stingers you'll hear in stuff like Dawn of the Dead years later, which I always remember that. But love the movie, love the release, can't wait to watch the other ones on 4K. I'll have to pick them up ASAP. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. I went to the theater and I watched the 5-hour epic by Quentin Tarantino. That's right. And I'd seen every movie after this in theaters. Death Proof, or Grindhouse, if you will. Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've seen all those movies after. So I was like, this is the one I did not see. And I didn't see the stuff before. I was way too young to see that. So seeing Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair was refreshing. I have not watched the Kill Bill movies in years. Probably since they came out. I remember really liking them. They do have all-star cast, and a lot of actors in there that are kind of like, I don't want to say B-movie actors, but movies that people that watch a lot of B movies would love, like David Carradine in here, of course, Gordon Liu, Sonny Chiba. The people that watched old Kung Fu or Yakuza films would enjoy the cast for sure with these people in here. There's also other people that pop up in lots and lots of films here. You got the big star like Uma Thurman, of course, Michael Bowen's in here, Michael Madsen, Lucy Liu, Vivica A. Fox. So you got a great little cast in here, tremendous cast. Michael Parks in dual roles, two great roles, especially the second role. I loved him in it. And Gordon Liu's in two roles too. Samuel Jackson got a small little role. So, sorry about that. So, seeing this thing in the Whole Bloody Affair, it's like 5.5 hours long. Did not feel like 5.5 hours. I went at 6 o'clock, and I did not get tired, I did not get bored, and that means a lot because I'm an old man. They had the intermission, which I absolutely loved, and I do not know exactly all the differences between the Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 and the Whole Bloody Affair, except I do know the 88 kind of fight scene is in color, and there's also maybe an elongated animated sequence because I think that was much longer than I really recall. But seeing the whole thing together was kind of fun. I do think that the first half is definitely more your action kind of paced, entertaining stuff, and I think that maybe sits better with a lot of audience. But I think the second half played just as good as the first half this time around for me, I think, because just some of the stuff here, the training montage in this, it flew by so quick in this one, probably because now, instead of, being very minimal information, I had minimal knowledge about Kung Fu movies and Yakuza movies, and the second half of this it's a Kung Fu Western. Well, the second half of Kill Bill is kind of a Kung Fu Western film. The first half is a Yakuza crime film, revenge story. They're all revenge story, but the first half is that element, right? But the second half is totally slows down, totally turns to this Western Kung Fu movie with like flashbacks and everything like that. I should mention Daryl Hannah as well, but the first half is more fast-paced. It's kind of got the kick you in the ass, get off your feet and everything along that lines, and it's told in your standard Tarantino, not exactly in order with flashbacks and all that kind of stuff like that to make it more interesting. The reveals work harder. I think it has the least amount of dialogue in any Tarantino movie, and I think that it has a certain campier, more fun, more B-movie element than his other ones. Death Proof has that as well. But this one is definitely in line with more something like a goofy kind of Kung Fu movie at times, where it's just not necessarily in the exact reality. I think the fight scene, especially the one with Vivica A. Fox, is great. It's fantastic, and the Lucy Liu stuff is also wonderful. I think the special effects are a blast. I think I like the animated sequence, although maybe it's a little too long. It's even a little too ridiculous for me. I think all the dialogue is solid. I do think some of the acting, it's not the strongest acting in any Tarantino movie, to be honest. Like, when you see his latter-day stuff after this, besides Death Proof, of course, like if you see like Inglourious Bastards and Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think the acting's stronger in those. I think the movies call for better acting and better dialogue and stuff. It fits their genres. This one fits its genre, and I think it's well done. I don't know too much to say about it, except that if you get a chance to see the Whole Bloody Affair, I would check it out. The time flew by quick. It's a cool movie. And I don't want to say that. It's a cool movie. As far as people like constantly like complaining that or whatever that Tarantino doesn't like these actors, who gives a shit? Like, you don't like this actor, whatnot. I don't care. I don't care. Argue about it. I shouldn't even mention it. But, Michael Madsen is one of the MVPs of this movie. I love his little kind of like kind of trashy Texas wisdom, or not Texas, but trashy kind of Southern wisdom stuff, trailer wisdom in here. I think he does a really good job, and R.I.P. Michael Madsen. But the stuff at the beginning with the Yakuza stuff I think is great, with the crime element, and it's just gory. It has a lot of characters from you'll recognize a couple of these guys from a lot of like Japanese films if you've seen them, which I thought was great. Gordon Liu's two performances, especially in the second half where he plays the Kung Fu guy, is perfect. It's perfect, dead on. Like the stuff of carrying the waters up the thing is so much like the Shaw Brothers stuff. And I did have a deeper appreciation for that scene and the Yakuza stuff, because in the last, how long has Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 been out? 2006, 7, I don't know. But damn near 20 years. I've probably watched hundreds of Kung Fu and Yakuza movies. So, and then I was just a 16, 17-year-old kid. Didn't have a fucking clue. And now it's like, now I kind of understand what he's going for a little bit more, and I can appreciate it on a different level. But, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair. Recommended for sure. Okay, I'll be relatively brief with this one here, and this is Keeper, 2025 movie, Osgood Perkins' second movie of the year. I like that he's making multiple movies a year. I think that's cool. I just wish that I dug them more. I thought The Monkey was kind of fun, kind of decent. I actually really liked it, and then on retrospect, I was like, I don't know if that makes much sense, kind of sloppy, and I kind of went back on it. I need to rewatch it. Maybe I'll go up or down or whatever, but I just mixed on it. I do like it, though. So, Osgood Perkins, he came out the gates with Blackcoat's Daughter, and I think it's fantastic. And I don't think he's ever matched that for me. Not even fucking close. I Am the Pretty Thing was my next favorite, and then they kind of go down every time. Gretel and Hansel is not as good as that. The other two, and then I didn't care much for Longlegs, and I just didn't. I thought Monkey was fun, and then this one I didn't care for at all. So I don't know where we're going here. The lead actress in this movie, let me say this: I love her character. I love her performance. Fantastic actress. Would watch anything she's in. Best part of the movie. Amazing. Love her look. Love her acting. Just amazing. And without her, I don't even know if this movie is good at all, to be honest. But it is a real movie. But she's fantastic in this. And we also have, I'm pretty sure that is one of the Hobbits as the other role in here. We kind of have a two-hander. There's really only 4 people in the entire movie, honestly. So this one is your classic isolation story where we have this couple that's kind of new. They've been together a year, and they're kind of going to his cabin that's isolated in this beautiful location. I knew right away it was Canada, right? I was like, oh, this is British Columbia or something. Yeah, something like that. I was like, yep, and it is. No problem with that. It's a beautiful place, from what I've seen in films at least. And so they're isolated here, and immediately things aren't exactly right. I don't know what the Hobbit guy, I'm probably wrong, it's not even Hobbit, I just call him the Hobbit guy, but is doing in here. I don't like his performance. I think it's odd. I think it's weird. I don't know if he's from New Zealand or English or something or Canadian, but his accent is off. And there's a reveal later on that maybe you could be like, well, it's justified. I don't think it's justified. I think it's off. I think his performance is weird. I think you need a character kind of like an actor like Vincent D'Onofrio, where you got this kind of gentle and sweet and vulnerable, but also fucking underlining scary. Vincent D'Onofrio does that probably better than anybody, and I think that maybe if he was younger, he'd be great in it. But I think that's kind of the idea. And at first, they seem to have this. They're going to have this long romantic weekend, but then there's a cousin next door. He's really weird and comes in and kind of unsettles everything. Then we kind of introduce this cake, and after she has a piece of this cake in a really awkward scene, he has to leave, and she starts to kind of hallucinate, and weird things start to happen and whatnot. And we're like an hour into this 100-minute movie, and we're like, okay, where's this going? What's going to happen here? And then we have this reveal that seems to come completely out of left fucking field. I don't know. It felt like a Deus Ex Machina, but it's not exactly that. But it did feel like that. Where it's like, well, there's this. It's like, what the fuck is this? And I know I love Giallo films, and Giallo's, I wouldn't even say necessarily does this. Maybe they'll throw like a little bit of loop, like, well, you didn't know about this and this, but at least it's still in the same genre of film. And normally, it's not just that. Maybe movies throw me for a loop or do something crazy or wild, and I can be on board with it. But I just felt like this was meandering and it was aimless, and at the very end, they just threw something together that was complete and utter bullshit. Visually, there's some amazing scenes at the very end, although some of the CGI looks like it's maybe a little too iffy. It looks iffy, especially the last scene looks like shit. I don't know if it's like AI generated. That's like going to be an insult now where everybody's like, I don't like how it looks, it's AI generated, but it is what it is. Hell. But I just don't know what. Visually, some of it was creepy, and I think that there's a couple scenes at the very end where I was like, this is great, and the performance is great, but man, I don't like this film. I think that it was meandering and just threw a fucking ending on out of nowhere. And I think that Osgood Perkins is a sloppy director. I think his writing, he didn't write this, but like The Monkey has some really sloppy moments, but it's a comedy and silly, so you get away with it. Longlegs doesn't make any sense to me, and everybody I've talked to and tried to ask them about it, they're like, well, I'll get back to you, and they never get back to me. Nobody has an explanation. That movie makes no fucking sense. Well, it's not supposed to make sense. It's not fucking Suspiria, guys. It's not. It's Longlegs. It's supposed to be a mystery thriller. Horror adjacent thing. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I can't make ends meet of it. And this one's the same way. I was like, well, I get that and this, but why this and why that and why that? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's just sloppy. It's sloppy. It's slop. And I'm sorry, it's not like the worst movie ever made. I gave it like 2.5 out of 5, but it's just very disappointing. And it's shot well too. Like, it's in a good location. There's so many cool things about it. But there's a lot of most movies with a moderate budget now are shot really well. Although it's not on film, so it has this look that's not great. like all movies, they don't have that magic quality about them unless they're on film, to me, because I'm old. Get off my lawn. Getting my AARP card soon, so leave me the fuck alone. But I'm just saying, you know, I just... No. I just... Everything's shot well and looks good and the same. And I don't like it. And I don't like this very much. Very disappointing. I think it's kind of a bad movie, actually. All right, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
What's it like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
Guy blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime. Loved by many women. You might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary? You bet. Really? Yeah.
Get the Videodrome! Long live the new flesh!
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready? Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
All right, let's get on the. Let's continue the hate train. Let the hate feed into me. Yes, I'm getting cranky and old. So the first one from 1983, although everywhere else says it's released in 1984, but this had an odd release thing because it was held up, released in an uncompleted version, and then kind of like shelved. Or there's a lot of problems with this one. This is from Intervision here. This is it Intervision? I would say it's Intervision, not Intervision. And this is Suffer Little Children. There is a great song in here that's called Suffer Little Children. And this is an oddity UK film. Really, really, really bizarre one here. Dirt cheap, SOB. Gotta be SOB, right? But how do I go about Suffer Little Children? So what we have here is this young girl is brought to an orphanage, or kind of like a small little orphanage thing with, like a dozen kids or something along the lines there. She's mute. She doesn't speak. And right off the bat, weird things start to happen here, of course, kids start to have accidents, and before long a couple kids are being kind of used as her lackeys, and she's kind of controlling them. Enter this kind of famous musician that used to be in an orphanage as well, kind of come talk to the kids and hang out. He starts to have a relationship with one of the workers there. They start to have this kind of love blossoming deal, so they're constantly there. There's also a doctor, another doctor there, so all three of these kind of people are starting to figure out something's not quite right with everything that's going on. People are being hurt, people are being attacked, and it's kind of meandering, kind of of boring, kind of slow. At certain times, I think people will find some humor in it because there'll be these demonic voice coming from the girl that obviously is not coming from her. It's like, this movie is cheap, and it's made by like a little film acting troupe, so you got to give it respect to that, because I think the director's wife, or is it actually, I can't remember who, actually she directed it. She's like a film troupe and everything like that, and her husband produced it. I think it's along that line. So it's a low budget movie, independent movie, using a film actors troupe that wasn't even released when it was in a completed version. They kind of just, the distributor kind of stole it away and put it out prematurely and everything, and they had a lot of issues with that aspect and everything like that. So for that, you kind of give it some respect. But up until the final act, it's kind of tedious and boring and somewhat funny for a lot of people, although I do really like this scene, how they kind of show how she's controlling them, where we have these zombies kind of having this weird picnic with them and whatnot. But not necessarily a picnic, you get the point. The ending, the last act of the movie is violent, and the way it's shot is amateurish, but it works because it's a lot of the violence takes place on a staircase, and there's blood all over the wall, and there's stabbings, and in the very reactions after everything is kind of cleared of people crying. The last act in this movie, the last climax of the film, is actually pretty effective. And if the whole film would have had more stuff like that, but I think that whole tedium and goofiness and low-budget amateurish stuff building up to that is what makes that scene so impactful. And I think it's really well done in that aspect. They're always like hyping this up here on there. They're like, Evil Dead scared you, The Exorcist haunted you, the film you will remember the rest of your life, the most controversial horror film of all time. I don't fucking know about all that. But the last 5 minutes or so is pretty gnarly, pretty gory, pretty entertaining. Overall, Suffer Little Children is not a great film. It's cheap, it's weird. It is a curio oddity that I think a lot of people will enjoy. But we have School Shock interview with director Alan Briggs. He directed it. His wife got the whole troupe together and stuff like that. So they made this movie together. Suggesting the Gullible interview with legend of UK Nasty era fanzine critique John Martin. He talks a little bit about the history release of this stuff. So yeah, they both do. It's an odd, weird film. I can not necessarily give this a wholehearted recommend, but I do think you maybe check it out. It's relatively short, but it does have those nasty bits at the very ending. Okay, we have another one here from good old Canada. And this is a Video Treasures. This is Skullduggery. That's right. Yeah, from 1983. Got some D&D horror going on to match up with Mazes and Monsters, the best movie of 1982. That's sarcasm. It's one of the worst movies of 1982. But Skullduggery, yes. I don't really know any of the actors or actresses in this film, although there is plenty of them. So in the very beginning, we have this king or lord or something, and he is cursed. And this guy comes in and says, I'm going to curse your entire lineage. He's like, oh no, but that happens. We fast forward. He's kind of killed. I think he sold his soul for magic and screwed over the guy. So his whole lineage is cursed and whatnot. And we obviously kind of go forward into modern times, and we have his lineage here now, and going to college, working. I think at like this. I don't know if he's in college or not, but he's working like in this film kind of area around all these amateur actors, and he's a costume guy. He gives a lot of costumes to people and whatnot. And in his spare time, he plays kind of a Dungeons and Dragons game where he's a really oddball kind of character, and he starts to kind of get paranoid during the game and starts to imagine that he's actually carrying out these spells. And as the dungeon master starts giving these more elaborate instructions, he starts to see them in reality, and he starts to carry out these wild and weird murders, and he starts to get these magical powers and whatnot. But he also has a nice little touch where he'll dress up in a lot of costumes, and that's kind of where the ending comes in. And he starts just to killing everybody that's kind of related to this whole like acting troupe that's around, and his friends and all these other people like that, even though like half of them, almost everybody just wants to sleep with him almost immediately when he's there. And she's like, oh, let's have sex, but there's no nudity in the movie. Like, you're like, there's all these chances for it, there's all these teasings of it, but it's never really there, and overall it's kind of tame. Although there is some weird kind of like oddball deaths in here that you got to kind of love for a slasher film. It is really a slasher film, although as weird as it is, a lot of odd deaths and weird outfits, kind of like Terror Train, but not as a good or as grotesque as that or anything like that. But the end climax gets even weirder and stuff, where he's using magic to kind of escape. Overall, Skullduggery, it's okay. The problem with the movie is it's a comedy, but it comes across quirky. It's a very quirky movie. None of the comedy landed for me. I didn't laugh. I didn't smile once. It's just like something that is overall quirky but not funny at all. I just don't find it funny. It's weird and bizarre, and I don't think it's supposed to be laugh out loud funny. If it is, it's a huge failure. But it's just supposed to be odd. It's an odd film. I don't know how well it works. I don't know if I enjoy the damn thing. There's a high kill count. I don't hate the thing either, but Skullduggery is an oddity. I'm glad I watched it. It's sat on my shelf for years and years and years, and I've known the name. But finally, I've now seen Skullduggery. this VHS here. I remember the video treasures were always really shitty because they were like an ELP mode or something like that, if I remember correctly. This tape was put out in 1990, but it says 84 for Media Home Video here. Although it is an 83. Look at that skeleton on the back. That's scary. He's spooky. Spooking the shit out of me. But yeah, that is Skullduggery. Okay, the last 1983 movie is a classic. It is the Antwerp Killer. This is 1983, obviously, and this is from Belgium. It's a Dutch film, and I don't know what to say about this one. This is an oddity here. I don't think this movie's complete. It's like 49, 50 minutes, and from a lot of the reviews, I don't think it is complete. I made AI-generated subtitles. That's the one thing I do like AI for, is my AI-generated subtitles. Thank you for that. But, yeah... Boy, oh boy. So in the beginning, we see somebody murdered. The kind of guy just walks up and stabs this woman. She falls down on the streets. And we have a police detective on the case looking up what's going on, trying to figure everything out. Kind of interviewing people, grabbing people, probably being a roughing up suspect. Sometimes there's a kid that he found and he's trying to help him find its parent. And then we kind of cut to these other people that are working in heroin. There's this street shootout for no apparent reason. And then we cut to another murder. I don't know where this is going or how this is related. And I don't think they do either. At the very end of the film, we have this big supposed like kind of scam where they're going to steal money from the company. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I don't know how any of it interconnects. There's a lot of montages, one of which has a slate in it. You actually see the slate of the camera in it. Overall, the Antwerp Killer is an unfinished movie that lifts all its music from things like John Carpenter's scores of Halloween 3 and The Thing. There is it's an uncompleted film. It's not finished, and all the score is lifted from John Carpenter's scores that he made, which is very similar to stuff like Rape and Die from this year, which lifts its score. The Howling is always one that gets lifted. The Thing always gets lifted. Phil Prince lifts all his scores from like the 80s movies, his pornos. So like all these movies are just lifted John Carpenter scores, the Howling scores, and other things like that, and the Death Wish 2 score. These are the scores I'm seeing a lot in the early 80s that these foreign countries are just lifting from freely. But Antwerp Killer, there's not much to say about it because there's not much in here. Obviously inspired by the Halloween films at certain times, but hey, I don't know. It's not great. It's a bad movie that's not finished. So there you go. Thank you, Belgium. Not Belgium's fault exactly. It isn't a Flemish documentary about Belgium horror, but I wish this maybe could get cleaned up and some context and maybe finish it. I don't know. Alright guys, the Patreon pick here is 2004-2005 Greg Araki movie, Mysterious Skin. And I don't know if this was the first Araki movie I saw. I think it was, and it left a lasting impression on me. I definitely saw this in high school or right after high school. It's based on a book by Scott Helm, and this is my favorite Greg Araki movies, and it's one of my favorite films as well. This is a movie that had such an impact on me. It was one of the ones that I would show my friends. And a bunch of straight friends and guys in high school, or late teens, early 20s would watch this, and you wouldn't normally think that they would enjoy this film, a lot of them. And I never heard anybody say anything bad. They actually really liked it. They really enjoyed it. I think, having Joseph Gordon-Levitt in here was a strong point because he had become somewhat of a decent-sized actor at this point, and people really liked him. And he does a tremendous job in here. And I think it's Brady Corbet is how you say the other actor's name. And he's in a few movies that I've seen as well. He's tremendous in here, too. Michelle Trachtenberg. And then some other small roles. Elizabeth Shue's in here. In fact, there's not one bad performance in this film. Bill Sage as the coach is also fantastic. So I don't know how to explain this. It's a very coming of age film, but it's a disturbing one here. And a lot of what it makes it disturbing is, of course, it involves pedophilia, which is a subject that's obviously disturbing to a lot of people. And it's an act that happened to two young kids that are trying to figure it out. Two kids that don't know. Well, one knows exactly what happened, and one has these kind of question marks in his life. And they kind of cross paths, and eventually it's all going to come together at the very end. And we're going to have this huge emotional kind of this. I guess I don't even want to say it's a release because it's just kind of this realization, right? This kind of understanding finally what happened, chasing the truth, and finally getting it. I think there is probably a little bit bit of autobiography stuff kind of going on in here, just from listening to the commentary and stuff and hearing Greg Araki say, I really wanted to get a chance to read this book. I eventually will read the book itself. But real, I can't say that right now, autobiographical stuff in here from the director talking about actually seeing a UFO. But so in the beginning, we kind of open up in the 80s, and we're jumping between these two young kids, and it catches your attention right away. We have Gordon-Levitt narrating, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and saying the first time that cum actually came out of my dick, and he has like the southern draw. Everybody kind of says southern draw is when this, and he said I should go back. And we see this person, this story through a child's eyes, right? So often in movies do you see like a pedophile character, this perpetrator, through the eyes of an adult, right? Or the eyes of you or anybody like that are just told. In this version here, we see it through the eyes of a child who actually had feelings for this pedophile. So it's done in this really disturbing kind of way where it's not just like portrayed as a completely evil person and whatnot. And this kid who's, from a single household family and is probably gay himself, and he has this what he basically forms his entire life, this experience with this coach, this grown man and whatnot. And the coach is just, it's a great performance because he doesn't come across as your drooling, switchblade holding killer. Like they always make that joke, right? Like in a lot of movies, they'll have the rapist or the pedophile just be this like monster or like that kind of he'll look the part that a person would just assume looks, not going to be this like somewhat wholesome kind of like 80s like hunk kind of guy. So that whole stuff in the beginning is really disturbing. And at the same time, we have this kid who believes that he was abducted by aliens. He had lost time. And we kind of go to their lives in different periods and everything like that and meet everything about them. And it really works. The soundtrack and the score in here is really strong. It's got like, I don't know, keep overusing the word ambient, but it does. It has this kind of droning quality that feels, I don't know, I guess you'd say ambient and kind of sucks you in. It feels ethereal is a word that I would say. And it's very emotional. But we see this character kind of in this small, like, kind of hick town and become this gay hustler. Kind of like chasing and never getting over those events that happened to him that kind of like haunted him and changed his entire, life and situation. And this is one act, these couple moments in these people's life, it changed everything in their life. And they're both looking for answers in a certain way. One's looking for something else and one's looking for the truth. But I think that seeing like the prostitution stuff, I'm just amazed by the performances that they got from actors like Richard Riley and Billy Drago and the other characters in here. They all do a tremendous job, and all the Johns are portrayed in different lights. They're not just your typical persons. There are a lot of actors that you wouldn't expect to see in there, like Richard Riley, this old man, this grandpa-aged man who comes across, nervous but nice, but also at the same time he's frequenting a 15-year-old prostitute. I think there's a lot of realism in there. And Greg Araki's movies, they tend to have this coming-of-age look at teens and young people, and I think that somehow he manages to capture that better than anybody. Oftentimes I'll watch a movie that's not a comedy, like a coming-of-age movie that's like in angst, and I'll be embarrassed for it, as an adult. But Greg Araki's movies somehow work really well. They somehow capture me. Although this one, his movies do have a fantastical element to them. Not totally fucked up, but like Doom Generation doesn't seem grounded in reality, but it's getting across its emotional values well. And Nowhere definitely has this certain kind of fantastical element with aliens and whatnot. And this one does as well, but this one is the grounded version of that. None of it feels fake. It all seems incredibly real and emotional, and it's incredibly impactful. It's just really kind of a disturbing drama, but it's also touching and heartwarming, and I think all the performances at the center of it really work, and it's haunting. Haunting is a word that I would go with. And I think that those moments that happen to you, right when they talk like 1981 and you see Halloween and stuff, that just is nostalgia porn for people that watch a lot of film or are obsessed with the past. As I'm a nostalgist, I won't lie, I'm obsessed with the old things, and that's why you just heard me rant about how old movies are better, because I don't like something. But there's reasons, but if you buy them or not, at the end of the day, it just comes down to preference. But I've always felt like, I didn't even show this one here. I have the old DVD here. I was waiting for a special edition Blu-ray. I have the old DVD from Strand releasing here with the commentary track with Greg Araki, Gordon-Levitt, and Brady Corbet. on here. Great commentary, mysterious skin, book reading, actors audition tape, which is really good, 5.1 mix. There is a Blu-ray, but it's long out of print, as this one is as well. And I know they did a 4K remaster, so hopefully we can get this from a Criterion. I think Criterion, they put out the Apocalypse kind of trilogy that Greg Araki did, so why not this one? His best film, I would say, his most impactful film for me, and just a great art film with great performances. I don't think Gordon Levitt ever did a better job in a movie that I've seen. He's a good actor, but I think he shines perfectly in this movie, and I love all the characters. Oh, I gotta mention the Chris Mulkey is also great in here, and Bradley Cobay's mom. I don't know who plays her, but she's a fantastic character. And Gail the Snail from It's Always Sunny has a really awkward, sad kind of performance here, where at times she's comical, but also sad. And they mentioned in the commentary she's like this person that seems like somewhat of a duller, but at times she'll say something really poignant, like a simple person that will say something really highly intelligent. Right? Like maybe the guy from The Stand, right? M-O-O-N, that spells moon when he actually spells moon. It's always funny like that. Sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day, but she's a little bit different than that. I don't want to say that. But overall, I think this movie does have some comedy elements into just the odd characters, but there's these moments and interactions that he has are just kind of eye-opening, and I can't praise this movie enough. I don't think I did a great job explaining it or talking about why I love it. It's definitely just to kind of pour your guts out why I love the thing and go all over the place. And I do have a lot of love for this movie. It was one that I saw at a young age, and it stuck with me, and it's still just as good the first time I saw it, maybe even better. But yeah, just a great haunting film that I think appeals to more people than one might think. So if it sounds like you're like, I don't know if I'd like to, give it a chance. I think you may find some genuine good stuff in here too. But Mysterious Skin, a fantastic film. Great title. A lot of great imagery as well. But great stuff. Check it out. All right, guys, let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. Nick from Flanders. The term spaghetti western might sound a bit off-putting, like combining hot chili and ice cream, but these two films are delicious delight. I love discovering all these classic movies my grandpa, who everybody called Poppy, who used to devour. When I was watching Once Upon a Time in the West, I'd be thinking, here's to you, Poppy. Questions. I was thinking, listening to Bruno Nicolai's magnificent score for Jess Franco's Dracula, I was awestruck, truly beautiful music. Sadly, the film itself is a bit meh. What's your favorite music from a so-and-so movie? Dude, Jess Franco's Count Dracula is underrated. Everyone's like, it's not that great. It's like, look at all the other Dracula movies you've seen. I mean, how many of them are fucking great? I tried to watch that new Dracula, the one with Caleb Landry Jones. Boy, oh boy. I don't know. That acting was bad in the first 5 minutes. I'll have to go back to it. But, best score from a so-so movie. I'll tell you, best trailer from a so-so movie is Surf Nazis Must Die. Amazing trailer. So-so movie. I'm sure there's a great score from a movie that's just a movie I don't love, but the score is great. There's tons of them. I know I watched a lot from 81. There'd be an amazing score in just an okay movie. Oh, geez, I'm trying to think. Now all I can think of is all the score that fucking Antwerp Killer ripped off of. So the Halloween 3 score is stuck in my head. So, and that's a great movie and a great score. I'm trying to think. I know there'd be something that comes to me. Oh boy. Oh boy. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean, there's a lot of good movies with great scores, but a so-so movie with a great score. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Sorry about that. I can't think. How do you feel about Black Friday spreading to the rest of the globe? I kind of dig it when I have money, that is. I mean, doesn't concern me. I don't have any opinion on it. I do buy, but I don't go to the stores. I think going to the stores sucks. But just buy it online. Why not? Are there periods when you don't buy any physical media? Yeah, when I'm broke. Or I got something I have to focus money on. Till next time, God willing, great episode as always. Keep up the great work, young sir. Thank you. No More Room in Hell podcast. When is the Wild Bunch getting a 4K release? I hope soon, because that merger with Warner Brothers, man. I hope when Netflix. I just want my fucking Wild Bunch 4K. They put out Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which is a Warner Brothers from Criterion. Why can't we get a Wild Bunch? Gray Nunez, because smiley face, thank you. Beyond 55, you may be speaking Mandarin after watching all that Shawscope. No shit. Or Cantonese. Hudson, 3838, Copperhead is a hard pass for me, Dave. I can't watch anything with snakes. Spiders, yes, but snakes, they give me nightmares. I hate snakes, Dave. I hate them. My mom hated snakes. Wouldn't even go in the reptile house at the zoo. I'd be like, I'm going to the reptiles. Come on. She'd be like, nope. Couldn't stand snakes. She didn't care about any other reptile or animal. She just could not stand snakes. Kevin Ken Coakley, it happened again. I posted it on Wednesday night. This is getting to be ridiculous. I had another post. I guess I'll have to stop watching first and save the watching for last. So I don't know what it is up with the comments. Your comment did come through this time around, but sometimes they don't come. I can only read if they're there. Way Up Dude gives me a clap. Thank you. Ken Coakley. I watched Good Boy on Shudder a few weeks ago. I accidentally turned on another movie with the same name, thinking it was the new one. I thought I was being scammed by the filmmakers when the dog in this one was a furry. A person who dresses like a cat or dog. There was nothing cute about him. Then I found the new one on Shudder. That film had a real dog who was cute, and Larry Fessenden in the same movie. Can you bear it? I felt for the poor little guy being frightened by the ghost and not even thinking about himself. He just wants to protect his human. The climax stunned me as I watched it. I hope there's going to be a Good Boy 2. Dogs. Dogs have an amazing senses. They can find missing bodies. They can even detect cancer. Speaking of Larry Fessenden, the viewer asked if we might see a modern-day Roger Corman, Vincent Price. Fessenden would be my choice. He had some classiness about him, and he also took advantage of Black Friday. On Cyber Monday, I got the following. I love Larry Fessenden's acting. I'm not a huge fan of his films. And he says he bought Annabelle, $20, complete my Conjuring set. Got the other one down here. Fantastic Four, $10, The Him, The Long Walk, all 10, and then $5, Amateur, 2025, Needful Things, Quiet Place 1, Strangers Day 1, Quiet Place Day 1, Strangers Chapter 1 and 2, and Terrifier 2 for $5, and then Vortalock for $4, and then $2, Blood for Dracula, Christmas Evil, Crypt of the Living Dead, Demon Wind, Devil Times 5, Flesh for Frankenstein, Forgotten Pistolera, Haunted Ween, Mausoleum, The Pumpkin Man. So I also bought Black Phone Tune. That movie fucked me up. I don't know who was scarier, the grabber or the dead kids who showed up at the girl's dreams. It could be the fact that the girl wasn't to Duran Duran. I always liked Scott Derrickson after Deliver Us from Evil with Eric Bana and Ralph Sarchis from New York detective to a demonologist. Demonologist. I need to watch Deliver Us from Evil. I've seen most of his other films. I don't love them all, but I really liked Black Phone 2. I think that's my favorite from him. Southport Rocker, nice rundown of Once Upon a Time in the West. Applaud you for your thoughts on the commentary. Sounds like a missed opportunity for such an important movie. I would agree, of course. I mean, I did say it, so yeah, I thank you. Then Martin VP, another interesting episode. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Let's get to this update. All right, let's start with the update here. Got a couple more Black Friday things. Brotherhood of the Wolf, 4K. Good movie. Always enjoyed this one. 4K here, $15 shipped. Couldn't pass it up. Good price on that. Then we got the Blaxploitation from Imprint Films, The Legend of Black Charley, The Soul of Black Charley, Superfly, T.N.T, and Detroit 9000. Got some Fred Williamson on here, 4-disc in there. Been looking to grab this. Didn't get the deluxe edition, but the 4-disc, all on separate discs, that's fine enough for me. Just glad they have the movies finally. Then we got some Black Friday stuff here from Crunchyroll. We have, these are, what is this release? Discotheque. Terrifying Girls High School Delinquent Convulsion Group. I picked up the other 3 of these I did not have. There's 4 of these films. Now I have the whole set. Terrifying Girls High School Lynch Law Classroom. It's a Pinky Violence flicks here. And Terrifying Girls High School Animal Classmates. There we go. And we got Female Yakuza Tale. They had a pretty good price. Most of them were like $15 to $12 on there. And then we have Bohachi Bushido, The Villain. The first one was put out by Mondo Macabro, and I liked that. So I was like, man, I gotta see how this story ends. So I picked this one up. And then last, we got an oddball one here, Party 7, which I've never seen. Synapse had the DVD out, and I had that, didn't watch it, but this was relatively cheap and looked completely wild, so I picked it up. But that is the update. Got a bunch more stuff coming, so hopefully next week I get even more for you. But yeah, let's get out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.